All right, everybody, welcome. If you guys could take a seat and get ready for our morning session. We have some people outside too if you guys want to come and join us. Yeah, would you guys mind coming to sit on the tables so that we can get started? Needs to be louder. Hello. Hello. It's 9:10 and we want to get started. If you guys could come and take a seat so that we're also live streaming, so we want to get the room a little bit quieter so that people can hear us. Thank you, everybody. So it is my very great pleasure to welcome you to Climate Community Day. My name is Maria Pereira, and I am a faculty member in the Physics and Astronomy Department. I am here speaking to you today as PCC's first Sustainability Faculty Fellow, which is one of a number of new positions that we've created at the college to support our new Climate Action and Sustainability Plan. So why are we here today? Climate Community Day is one of over 300 events happening in 60 different countries around the world, all part of the Worldwide Climate Justice and Education Week. We are really grateful to Bard College and the Open Society University Network's leadership in making these events happen. So we will play this video. Chelsea, would you mind?
It can take air out of my little brother's lungs.
What if it submerges my Bangladeshi land of love, magic, stories, and songs?
I'm afraid my hands can do nothing to stop the downpour.
I'm afraid it will leave us alone in a world of concrete and plastic.
Groom Gaia into a vacant void.
It will take the green and leave us in the dark.
I'm afraid it will bring out the worst in people.
Uprooting our families and communities.
Leaving our children to an irreversible nightmare.
Taking the beauty of each season from us.
Causing untold suffering that could have been prevented.
I am afraid.
I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
So welcome again. Before we get started, tech difficulties. Thank you. There we go. So before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors for allowing this and enabling this event to happen. We have, again, Bard College's leadership in this initiative has been instrumental. The Office of the Provost and the Teaching and Learning Center have supported the initiative financially in many different ways, and also the PCC's new Office of Sustainability, a new organization within the college designed to support all these efforts. We are also sorry, the clicker isn't happening. Can you go to the next slide? Nope, previous one. No, the previous one. No, sorry, the previous slide. Thank you, sorry. So we want to, we are also grateful to those that have come before us and to the land that sustains us. And in that spirit, I would like to share with you our college's land and labor acknowledgement. We recognize that we are on the unceded lands of the Tohono O'odham and Pasquayaqui people who have been ongoing stewards of these lands. We honor their love and commitment to these lands and strive to continue their work. We honor the enslaved people, immigrants, refugees, and others who built the wealth and foundation of the United States. We acknowledge the benefit we have received from these lands and the labor of our ancestors. Pima Community College encourages each member of our community to learn about the land we inhabit, the tribal communities connected to this land, and the ways in which we can contribute to restorative practices related to land and community. We have a great show for you today. We have a great show for you today, I promise. The day's schedule and a lot more information and resources are available on our event Padlet, and you can access the Padlet. Next slide, please. By using the QR codes that have been sprinkled around the room or the link that's posted. I think we have ghosts in the computer that are moving it around. Is it me? It's me. It's always me. That's always the answer. So here's our QR code and our tiny URL code for you guys to access our event Padlet. And it has a lot of different resources connected to the sessions and also the awesome community orgs that we have here today. So I want to get right to it. Kicking things off for this morning will be Dr. Kathy Jacobs and this clicker from hell. Here we go. She's going to give us an overview of the climate solutions landscape, or what we've colloquially been calling Climate Solutions 101. And she's graciously accepted our invitation to come and set the scene for the day. Before we get started, I want to point out that this session is supported by the Teaching and Learning Center. And so faculty, please sign in using this QR code or this link so that you can receive credit and build towards your certificate in sustainability. So without further ado, Dr. Kathy Jacobs. Kathy Jacobs is a professor of environmental science at the University of Arizona and the director of the Center for Climate Adaptation Science and Solutions, CCAS? Yeah. Within the Arizona Institute of Resilience. CCAS builds capacity on campus and off to accelerate adaptation and on-the-ground solutions to climate issues. She was the executive director of the Arizona Water Institute from 2006 to 2009. And from 2009 to 2013, Jacobs worked in the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House. She was the director of the 3rd National Climate Assessment and the lead advisor on water science, water policy, and climate adaptation. She worked for 23 years for the Arizona Department of Water Resources, including 15 as the appointed director of the Tucson Active Management Area. We are so lucky to have you here today, so please welcome Dr. Kathy Jacobs.
Good morning. I'm really glad to be here and happy to see all of you. I don't see any smiley faces, so you all need to pep up here. So this issue that we're going to be discussing, I guess, all day really takes a village, so I'm really glad that you're here to help work on these issues. I'm going to share with you my own perspective on climate change, whoa, I didn't even do anything. Okay, talk to you a little bit about my own perspective on climate issues. I've been working a bit more on the adaptation side of the equation, which is the managing risk side, and a little bit less on the mitigation side, which is the managing greenhouse gas emissions part. But they're all part of an equation, and so that's really the perspective that I'm going to be bringing to you today. So starting hopefully with the first slide. So when I was working in the White House, the person I responded to directly was Dr. John Holdren, who was Obama's chief science advisor. And Holdren was widely known for saying we have 3 choices: mitigation, adaptation, and suffering. We're going to be doing some of each, and the question is, what is the mix going to be? The more mitigation we do, which is managing greenhouse gas emissions, the less adaptation will be required and the less suffering there will be. This is not a black and white equation here. It's like we make a decision now to make investments in the future, we can significantly improve our chances of limiting the risk And if we don't, the amount of suffering and cost will increase. So let's see what happens. Could you advance it, please? So I wanted to start with some definitions because lots of people get these words very mixed up, and for good reason. Actually, the climate community uses the word mitigation very differently from the rest of the world. So mitigation is reducing or managing greenhouse gas emissions, either by reducing the emissions themselves or by capturing carbon dioxide and removing it from the atmosphere. Whereas adaptation, I call it managing risk, is adjustments in natural human systems to take advantage of beneficial opportunities or moderate negative effects. So those are both sides of the same coin. Next. All right. And I think it's also important to understand the concept of maladaptation, because lots of people who are making these investments in managing risk are leading to worse outcomes than you actually would imagine, because they don't think about the full range or full spectrum of possible outcomes. So broadly defined, maladaptation is when climate change adaptation actions backfire and have the opposite of that from the intended effect. An example here in the lower left is a seawall that was built to protect a city against ocean damage from the ocean with sea level rise, and in fact ended up trapping water behind it. That's the kind of thing we mean when we talk about maladaptation. We also see houses like this one that I saw in Massachusetts. It's up on stilts in the middle of a giant marsh. You can imagine how this isn't the greatest idea, because obviously even getting to or from that house in the context of a major event would be seriously problematic. So you have to be careful thinking forward as you make these decisions. I'm sure all of you are aware that the amount of climate change that we experience into the future has everything to do with the decisions that we're making today. There are folks who work on long-term climate change issues who try to project into the future how each of our decisions in society affect the amount of greenhouse gas emissions into the future. And in the earlier version of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports, they put together these things called RCPs, which are representative concentration pathways. We've been following the higher level of that for the most part, meaning we are at the high level of emissions and haven't really turned the corner yet towards reducing emissions. The more recent version of these trajectories are called shared socioeconomic pathways. These are mainly almost exactly the same thing as the RCPs, but they actually provide more of a standardized comparison of how our choices affect the amount of warming that we experience. That top red line is really comparable to the worst case scenario in the prior one, which was RCP 8.5. But the scenarios that people are mainly using now to project impacts into the future are either fossil fuel development, which is the high one, middle of the road, which is the green one here, and sustainability, which is the blue one, where we start to turn around the amount of greenhouse gas emissions and actually start reducing them over time. One of the reasons that people are starting to get a grip on the fact that climate change is real and happening, even in parts of the country where that's not a politically expedient thing to think, is because of the extreme events that have been occurring. Most people have this idea that you can adjust to gradual change over time, and humans have actually demonstrated that. We're pretty good at understanding long-term trends and gradually adjusting. What we're not great at is anticipating extreme events. And it turns out extreme events are more extreme and are happening more frequently. So this is a graph that shows the number of billion-dollar disasters by type in the United States over time. And as you can see, there's quite an increase. In particular, severe storms and droughts and tropical cyclones have been causing lots of billion-dollar damages. Wildfires, especially in California, very big deal. So when we start talking about how to manage these risks, because we do need to manage them, we don't want to just sit around and be victims, we need to think about both adaptation and mitigation strategies because they are, as I said, two sides of the same coin. But they often interact in ways that can result in unintended consequences. So for example, lots of people think that desalination is the clue or the key to our future water supply in Arizona. In fact, many people in high places think that. The problem with thinking that way is that the energy associated with desalination, along with many other concerns such as environmental impacts, really have this combined effect of, okay, we're managing some risks related to water supply, but we're actually exacerbating the risks associated with greenhouse gas emissions because of all the construction and the energy requirements and so forth. The other part of understanding the energy side of the adaptation and mitigation equation is thinking about how adaptation uses energy inputs. So there are, for example, one-time energy inputs for building large infrastructure, such as electric cars. Electric cars take lots of construction and they take lots of materials, and that actually has an energy cost associated with it as well. But you also need to think about the energy inputs needed for operations, regardless of whether it's an adaptation or a mitigation effort. So I think people fail to see the whole picture. Lots of the time it's pretty important to think big about the connections between use of energy and the solutions that we're considering. I'm going to be sharing a few of the findings from the most recent National Climate Assessment. As Maria mentioned, I led the third National Climate Assessment, which was a pretty exciting time in my life. And also it felt like I was making a bit of a difference, though I wish we'd made a lot more progress since that time. The adaptation chapter for the last National Climate Assessment, which just came out, basically says adaptation is occurring but insufficient in relation to the pace of climate change. It requires that we think about equity. We can't just adapt and protect the people who have money and the people who are sort of in political power. We need to think about all of us. Transformative adaptation will be needed to adequately address climate risks because of the acceleration of the impacts. And this map actually shows the number of publicly documented adaptation activities. I think this is a pretty, may not be the most scientific way of generating a map of showing who is and who isn't doing things. But as you can probably tell, those who are along the coasts are actually doing the most from an adaptation perspective. The middle of the country, far less. Colorado actually is the exception for the middle of the country in terms of actually taking a lot of effort in adaptation. It's also been noted that governance of adaptation is important. So if you're going to manage risk and you want it to be equitable, you can't just let people fend for themselves. You have to have a system of people who are helping to make decisions. In addition, there's a whole science component to making these decisions so that you don't result in maladaptation and you do end up really benefiting a large swath of people. It's also hard to tell how, what money is being spent on adaptation and which money would have been spent anyway, so sort of making those distinguishing characteristics is hard to do. On the mitigation side, or the managing greenhouse gas emissions, the messages were much simpler in this assessment. Basically, successful mitigation means reaching net zero emissions. That's a very strong statement to come out in the United States assessment. So if we're actually going to start limiting greenhouse gas emissions, we have to get down to zero in terms of current emissions. We know how to do this. We've got all the technology. It's really a question of political will. To reach net zero emissions, more mitigation options need to be explored. It can be sustainable, healthy, and fair, And we can act, and of course should act, that's what it probably should say, but you can't say things like that in national climate assessments. So very similar to the map for adaptation strategies, most of the states that have taken significant number of actions related to mitigation are on the coast. But again, there's some political overlay associated with this. And interestingly, Colorado, again, shows up as one of the interior states that's doing more in the mitigation area. I do think it's important for us to realize where we are now versus where we've committed to be in order to get to net zero emissions. And I think that this graphic does a great job of showing that. This is comparing, I think it's 2019 emissions by sector to where we need to be by 2050. And as you can see, we basically need a 50% reduction below 2005 levels by 2030 in order to be on the line towards net zero by 2050. We are not anywhere near that at this time. And so we've got a long way to go. And fortunately, there's a lot of young people in the room who are going to fix this for us, because all of us haven't actually pulled this off yet. Working on it, but not yet succeeding. The good news is there's a lot of improvement in terms of the cost for reducing wind energy, which is the upper left, solar energy, which is the upper middle, and electric vehicle batteries. So the costs are falling dramatically. Meanwhile, the amount of wind capacity massively increased, utility scale solar massively increased, and the cumulative EV sales going up. So we are seeing that economics works. We're seeing there are incentives being provided by the federal government. People are responding, but we do need a long-term commitment to this kind of trajectory to get where we're trying to go. But the good news is it is actually happening. I mean, we are seeing investments in these renewable sources of energy. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the adaptation side of this equation. And my perspective on this is really, if you're going to be managing risk, you need to know what works and what doesn't work. And as you've seen with these more bigger impacts and more common extreme events, we need to do a much better job of preparation. In order to do that, we need to be sharing what we're learning over time, which isn't really happening. We don't have a national strategy for managing risk associated with climate change, and that, in my view, is a really significant problem. There's lots of challenges. First of all, success in adaptation depends on who gets to define success. Is it the government? Is it the people who are actually affected? Who is the one who gets to decide what successful adaptation is? Because in some cases, you adapt on behalf of one community and you actually make things worse for another. There are always issues with distribution of benefits and costs of adaptation. This is actually true for everything. There's always issues with who pays and who benefits from investments of any policy. Some adaptation efforts increase greenhouse gas emissions. So you can imagine, for example, building a seawall takes a lot of concrete, and concrete emits an awful lot of greenhouse gases. So again, if you don't think about both sides of this equation, you actually can make mistakes that make things worse. Some mitigation efforts actually increase climate-related risks. We've seen that in many categories, but one example is depending on Central Arizona Project water in this part of the world. We have made ourselves more reliant on a less reliable source of water. That doesn't mean it was a bad idea. I actually think it was a good idea, but we have actually increased our risk in some ways by that decision. Adaptation can introduce long-term risks. For example, if you decide you're going to import water to irrigate crops and then you lose that source of supply, you've increased the risk to the agricultural community. Climate change is a wicked problem, as I'm sure you have noticed. It's pervasive and unpredictable, and the decisions that we make today will influence the options for the generations to come. So that makes it much more difficult to get your arms around. There's a significant risk of cascading risks when one impact from climate change actually starts impacting lots of systems. A good example is wildfire. Wildfire can take out, the electric system, the communication system. It can affect health because of air quality. There's a whole lot of cascading effects associated with impacts like wildfire. The solutions are not always transferable, which is why we have to set up a system to learn from our mistakes and make better decisions in the future. And we also need to stop focusing on the short-term risks and think more long-term as we're making these decisions. Otherwise, we may actually increase long-term risk as we're reducing short-term risk. So I know this is really complicated. I am coming to the part where there's good news, but this is a challenging topic, which means I have good job security. Anyway, externally funded adaptation is different from empowerment and capacity building. If you just throw a lot of money at a problem, it often really goes to the people who are in power already, as opposed to empowering the people who are the affected parties. And anticipating the spatial and temporal nature of climate change is very difficult. The science is not perfect, and we can't produce the kinds of projections that would be required to give people certainty about what future impacts might be. There are lots of solutions, and as I've already mentioned, finding synergies between adaptation and mitigation efforts is an important way to do that. Looking for places where there are co-benefits, where you increase the quality of life, you reduce the amount of urban heat effect through green infrastructure, forest management, et cetera. There you're actually capturing carbon as well as increasing shade and reducing temperature in urban situations. We also need to clearly define what problem it is that we are dealing with, because if we're all coming to a problem and looking at it from a different side, we're not going to agree on the solutions, and we do need to work together to get to success. Ensuring a broad intersection of affected parties can help legitimize the decision. And I think reframing each of these challenges as an opportunity, particularly from an economic perspective, there's money to be made in solving these problems, both in terms of managing risk and in terms of investing in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So here's an example of the idea of reframing. So I see it for the water supply situation in this region, using a portfolio approach to adaptation. So integrated water management, which is the general approach that Tucson Water has taken, One Water, which matches quality to use and tries to take the entire portfolio of water supplies into account as you're making decisions. We're already massively invested in groundwater management and aquifer storage and recovery. We have some of the biggest and most successful underground storage facilities in the country, in the Avra Valley. And this state has made great progress with storing water underground. We've also made huge progress in conservation and increasing water efficiency, a massive reduction in the per capita water use rate for all of the state of Arizona, and actually for the country generally, but even more so here. Stormwater capture and storage, there's still opportunities here, but clearly we are doing much better in this area now than we have in the past. Recycling and reuse of municipal wastewater, we've been on the forefront as the greater Tucson community. In fact, I just read that it was the 50th anniversary of Tucson's reclaimed water system that just happened this week. So we've been actually using reclaimed water for irrigation across this community, and now for recharge and for habitat restoration as well. There are ways to reoperate reservoirs as well. This is not so appropriate for here, but certainly for the Salt River Project. There are ways to manage reservoirs to maximize water availability and minimize the losses. Desalination, which, if you're going to have a full, panoply of ideas, that's certainly one of them. Is it the best idea for us right now? Maybe not, but maybe it is a good idea for many other communities. And then finally, green infrastructure. So look at all those solutions. Many of them are already implemented in our community, and we do know how to do these things to manage risk. Another way of thinking about managing risk is about decisions that are called adaptation pathways, where we understand where we are today and where we may be in the future and start making those decisions so that we can build from a current adaptation strategy towards one in the future that is more transformational. So we're thinking about both the short-term and the long-term changes that are required while making those decisions. And then finally, I think a lot of this has to do, again, with framing and defining what success looks like. Are we focusing our adaptation and mitigation investments on measurable improvements in human and environmental welfare over time? And I emphasize and environmental because particularly in this state, we think about solutions almost exclusively from the perspective of people. We have very few protections for the environment in the context of climate change, and the environment is taking a beating. So we all need to think about that when talking to our legislators and deciding who to vote for. This climate change issue is not just about us. It's about rivers, and it's about plants and animals, and it's about the future of biodiversity. So there's a lot at stake. And then the final slide is just an advertisement for my center. Please feel free to go to our website. What we are trying to do is help people bridge the gap between science and decision making, help people understand risk in a complex, interdisciplinary, and multi-sectoral context, thinking about transformational adaptation and preparing for extreme events, in finding synergies between adaptation and mitigation, which I hope is what I just showed you about in this talk. So that's what I've got, and I'm happy to take questions unless Maria tells me that I can't. Do I have time? Yes. I'm happy to take your, I'll repeat your question. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Mm-hmm.
So it seems that given the kind of possibility of more precipitation,
Yeah.
look at tap the toilet and desal.
So the basic question was, since we're seeing destabilization of the jet stream, we could end up with a wetter future rather than a drier future. I don't think that's quite right. I think what we're seeing is the combination of a long-term trend with what's been going on with El Nino. So it was predicted that we would have a wet winter this winter because it was a very strong El Nino overlaying the top of this long-term trend. What is actually very well known is that it's getting wetter in the northern latitudes, much more precipitation, much more intensity of precipitation. What we're seeing is in more intensity of precipitation, but not necessarily more total precipitation on average over time. So we do need to be prepared for longer hot, dry periods as well as more intense precipitation. But I would not suggest that this situation really means we should depend more on more rainwater coming from the sky. That's pretty unlikely. And even if that is the case, the increase in temperature is far outweighing any increase in precipitation. So the drying that occurs, because the atmosphere is warmer, where it's pulling all the water out of the soil and out of the trees, so The evapotranspiration rate's increasing. It's why we're seeing less water in the Colorado River. So there's going to be more variability, almost definitely more intensity of precipitation because there's more water in the atmosphere and a less stable pattern. I think that's pretty clear. But the overall picture is hotter and drier across these latitudes and wetter further north.
But the question is, what kind of precipitation?
Sure.
When I was trying to determine the investment I was going to make.
Sorry, we need to have you on the microphone because people.
Rainwater harvesting and building a cistern.
Sure.
What I noticed was that this was about 5 years ago, that we were getting about 3 main events a year, large events.
Sure.
And that's where we get the water, those 3 large events. I agree that throughout the year, we're mostly dry and not getting any precipitation. Right. But when we do, we get a lot, and the ability to capture those big events is where I think the incentive is to continue on that path.
Sure. I mean, there's plenty of incentive to continue on that path. I just don't want people to feel that that is going to be the salvation. It's not enough water over time unless it's done at massive scale, and then the economics are really very questionable at that point. So there are many ways to capture water. Part of it is capturing it in the natural aquifers. And so maximizing that as well as rainwater harvesting in the urban scene is a good way to think about it. Other questions?
Thank you. Dr. Jacobs, do you see any indication statewide that there is a better climate for considering statewide water management?
That's a great question. Clearly, there's more interest in thinking about adding active management areas and increasing the opportunities for people to manage groundwater outside of the active management areas. That being said, I don't think that we're on a trajectory now that's working out terribly well. It doesn't seem like the implementation's working in the Douglas AMA particularly. I really wish we could do something about that, and I feel like I'm the one that should go do it, but I don't know how I can do that on top of everything else. I do think there's interest, but there's so much anti-regulatory sentiment and so much distrust of the government. That's what's held us back since 1980. That's why there was not a statewide water management system put in place in 1980. And we're still seeing distrust of the government, people not wanting to meter their wells, people not wanting any kind of regulation of their water use, even as the water supply is dramatically dropping. Meanwhile, we see in the active management areas, water levels are rising, particularly this one. The reason being that we are importing so much Colorado River water, but it's worked in the active management areas. And so I don't know why the rural parts of the state don't see that that is a potential outcome for them too. So it's hard to watch, but there could be just one change in the legislature could really significantly affect this outcome. Trace, I guess you need a microphone.
Can't talk loudly, however.
That may not affect the people online.
That's fine. You mentioned that we have the technologies required to resolve these problems.
Yep.
But there's a class of several classes of difficult to convert heavy mining, heavy transport, actual chemical feedstock. And oil in particular is very capital intensive. So as you decrease the total amount significantly, you're going to increase the price of what remains. And my guesstimate is if you've had a 5-fold reduction in oil, you'd have a tripling in the price of what remained to be produced. What kind of impact do you think that's likely to have on this whole issue of transition and the global economy that's based on it?
That's a great question. I'm not an economist, and I'm not sure I can answer your question very well. I'm not sure that's exactly how it works. In other words, I'm not sure that the price signal always reflects what the capital investment is. So I'm not sure it's as big a problem as it might be if that were the case. But I'm probably not the right person to go any farther than that.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrea Herr with Great Old Broads for Wilderness. I am super interested to hear from students.
Any students have some questions for us?
It's on you.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. No ideas. Come on, we know you do. Wow, okay.
I have a question.
You could just stick the microphone in front of somebody and see
I
what happens.
could. I'm going to give them a little more time now that they've been
Okay.
passed the batons to think about a question. But I have a question about, you've described this as correctly as a very complex problem that has a lot of different aspects to it. And so my question is, how do we adapt higher education institutions to help students and help grapple with all of these different parts of the problem, like this multi-interdisciplinary problem, since higher education traditionally is a very siloed
Right.
structure, and so how do we help those integrations, those conversations? I imagine that your center has something is one possible response to that, but how do you envision that adaptation at that level?
Yeah, I mean, I think at one level, higher education institutions, the main thing they can do is set a good example. And it's great that you now have a sustainability office and that's a significant component of the courses available here. But it's also important that you walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And so certainly the investments in, what's your energy system, what's your water conservation ethic, what's going on with the use of plastic, all those kinds of things, sort of integrating that into the curriculum really helps a lot. And I guess most important is making this personal for students. Every student comes from a different background, and I think every person comes from a different background. We're all approaching these issues with different amounts of fear and excitement, mostly fear, I'm afraid, and sort of translating that into excitement and capacity as opposed to fear and trepidation is a really important thing. About money to be made, you can make a big difference as a single individual, and certainly the way we vote matters enormously. The future to this state, the future of the country, the future of the world, and so just helping people be engaged in making the right decision from a climate perspective, even if you don't think about anything else, there's a very clear distinction to be made.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Well, I have a question to ask kind of on behalf of my students. Talking about making this personal, do you have anything to add about when students think about wanting to represent the needs of their own families and communities, like what would be the top things you might suggest that people start to think about and ways that they could start to take action?
I think the top thing is making sure that all your friends and neighbors vote and they think about climate when they vote. I think the second thing is thinking about how you use energy, with the number of trips you take in gas-powered automobiles, where you set your thermostat. There's many decisions that are made at an individual household level that have a lot to do with energy. But being involved it's very easy as a citizen to be involved in energy policy. You just pay attention to what's going on at the Corporation Commission, which is what regulates many of these utilities. So there's ways to be engaged in community decision processes, but also ways to really affect your own energy use and that of others, as well as the adaptation side, managing risk, paying attention to where your grandmother is when the temperature goes over 100 degrees And, you know, is she in a place where she's not going to get overheated? You know, these are all risks that affect each of us personally. Yes, is there another? Yes. Yay, are you a student?
Yes,
Woo!
I'm a student.
All right.
So, yeah, my question is, how can we as students convince people to harvest water in our community?
Well, there's many ways, but the first way is that it's economically very advantageous in the sense that Tucson Water is paying for the majority of the cost for rainwater harvesting systems. And so if they weren't, the economics of this would not work out well, but because they do for the individual. Honestly, not every roof is ideally situated and not every yard can use water harvesting water. There's plenty of information online, and there's also classes that are available that are remote, and I think there's videotapes. There's lots of opportunities to share. Have a rainwater harvesting party and, you know, invite somebody from Tucson Water. I think they'll probably come and tell you all about it.
Thank you.
Sure.
I had a question, like, you know how the population is just growing, like, almost every year? It seems like it, like, drastically went up. How would that work with the water conservation? Do they just keep building more reservoirs, or is it like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So population has increased consistently over time. I think it's tripled population in this state, and we're actually using less water than we were in 1985. There's two reasons for that. One is that agriculture is reducing over time to some degree, more in some areas than others, but also because the per capita water use, each person is using less water because we have low flow toilets, low flow showers, etc. So at some level, we are offsetting the new growth by the conservation efforts that are ongoing. That being said, that's not true in every region. There are places where water demand is definitely increasing, and we're seeing that with agriculture in southeastern Arizona. Water levels are declining dramatically. We're seeing a lot of building in western parts of the Phoenix active management area and between Phoenix and Tucson, and there we are seeing municipal development affecting water supplies. But conservation does help with that, and then use of renewable water does as well. That's why we're bringing so much CAP water, trying to reuse the municipal effluent and so forth.
I have a question. How can you inspire students to change patterns in their lives to help protect the environment?
Well, I think actually the students have to inspire us. I mean, it's the youth who have the energy. It's your future that's at stake. You know, all of us have kind of, those of us, speaking for myself, have probably not quite as many generations or many decades to come as you do. So it really is about investing in your own future to take charge of these issues and not be a victim. I mean, I'm hoping that means that you are energized to own this issue and get all the people you know to pay attention to it. And I'm happy to come talk to whoever wants to talk about it. So, got another, or yes?
Can I just have a quick comment for the follow-up to the questions about water harvesting, water management, et cetera. In particular for students, we are in the process of developing internships with the local organization Watershed Management Group, and that's exactly what they do, is help people expand their water harvesting opportunities at home and understanding how to do that more broadly in the community. So if you are interested in pursuing that, please let me know and I'll connect you and we'll make that happen.
Great. Got another one up here.
So we have one final question, and then we have to move on to the next speaker, Sarah.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I have 2 teenage children, and my daughter, who is a senior in high school, gets very frustrated when we say that when we push the problem onto her generation, and she she feels like we are the adults now, and we are throwing up our hands and just saying it's your problem to solve. And so I have really taken that to heart, that we can't just lay the problem on to the next generation. We need to step up and take action now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the faster we move, the smaller the problem is going to be, which I hope was part of my message. When I say that, you know, the youth are the ones who are going to end up owning it, that doesn't mean they're the ones that created it or it's their responsibility. That being said, those voices from young people are heard more than the voices from old people. So, you know, you should feel empowered to go bother your elected officials. And this is a serious issue. And, you know, we need to be all investing in our future. And there are people trying to solve this problem, and they are not all young. It's just that the political will is very hard to come by. So thank you very much, and good luck with your day today, and happy to talk to any of you in the future. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Kathy. So next up, I have the pleasure of welcoming our interim chancellor, Dr. Dolores Duran Cerda. And I am going to tell you that Dr. Duran Cerda is the first Latina to lead Pima Community College. For 6 years, she served as provost. She is the executive vice chancellor for academic affairs, overseeing all academic areas of the college. Dr. Duran Cerda served as full-time faculty for 10 years before becoming an administrator at Pima, so she knows the ins and outs of the faculty profession well. As interim chancellor, she is focused on student success, community engagement, and instilling a culture of caring at the college. She is the proud daughter of Mexican and Chilean immigrants, and she is here today to help us connect climate action and sustainability to PCC's culture of care. So please welcome Dr. Duran Cerda.
Good morning. Buenos dias. How are we doing? Are you excited about today and the events? Yes, excellent. Well, I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and welcome to PCC's Climate Community Day. I don't know if you knew this, but April is also Community College Month, so we're celebrating that appropriately as well. So let us thank Dr. Kathy Jacobs again for her opening presentation. I would also like to thank Dr. if I can pronounce this correctly, Penelise Droz, who will be speaking on building collective Indigenous futures later this afternoon. So I know she's not here right now, but I'm looking forward to all of you listening to her expertise and knowledge. Before I go on further, I'd also like to recognize those who've worked very hard to put this event together, and that's PCC's Climate Action and Sustainability Plan Curriculum Committee. If you are a member, could you please stand up so we could recognize you? Stand up. Go ahead and stand up. Thank you. Yes, or raise your hands. Thank you for all of your work. This is such a critical piece for not only for the college, but for our entire community. And I understand we have community members here as well as students and staff and faculty. So thank you for joining us. I'd also especially like to recognize Maria Pereira, astronomy faculty, and Crystal McKenna, climate action and sustainability faculties, and both of your visions, your efforts, and talents that made today's community event possible. So let's give them a round of applause. So Pima's Climate Action and Sustainability Plan was put forward last year, and the key word in it is action, right? It's enough about the talking and reflecting, but now what do we do? What's the action? So I'm pleased to say that over this past year, the college has taken intentional, deliberate, concrete, and meaningful steps to reduce our carbon footprint and become responsible stewards of the diverse ecosystem that we are privileged to live in. And the college currently gets about, I don't know if you knew this, about 18% of our total energy coming from the solar panels that are at the campus parking lots. I don't know if you knew that. We are on a path to reduce our energy use and climate impact by 28% over the next year. Not too bad, right? Little by little, yes. And we are also offering new courses in climate action and sustainability, which will help spark interest in the growing field. And our faculty member, Crystal McKenna, was hired specifically to take care of these issues as well. So this will help develop a pipeline of young leaders who will carry on this important work forward. And I'd like to share with you that about 22 Pima College faculty members are currently conducting academic research into some aspect of sustainability. And our goal is to make Pima one of the most sustainable community colleges in the country. And equally as important, as the title says there, we want to integrate the climate action and sustainability plan into our culture of care initiatives. So one of my goals as interim chancellor, I have 4 different goals. One is preparing the college for a reaffirmation of accreditation, increasing enrollment, but the third goal is enhancing our culture of care. We've always had a culture of care at the college, but more really being intentional about it and valuing our employees and elevating the student voice. So I hear there are a lot of students here. Could you please raise your hand so we know who the students are? Oh, look at this. This is fabulous. So you take it to heart. You understand what the future entails for us and how we need to be intentional about our acts in sustainability. So a culture of care at Pima builds on a campus culture where everybody feels a deep sense of belonging, that everyone is unique in identity and is valued and respected, and where all voices are valued. And that's why I say the student voice needs to be elevated. So the college, for as many years, institutions as a whole, we always say, we want to make sure our students are college ready. Well, let's shift that around and let's make sure our institutions are student ready and have initiatives such as these that are so key and important, like I said, not only for the college, but our community, Southern Arizona, for the country and for the world. But unfortunately, as we know, the effects of climate change disproportionately also affect low-income, underserved, and marginalized communities. And their voices and struggles related to climate change need to be respected and heard. The issues around climate change cannot be separated from social justice. Do you agree? Yes. So thank you for reminding us about the fight against climate change is also a fight for social justice. By working to address and find solutions for the root cause of both, you all are helping to create a more aligned and interconnected world and a just and sustainable future for all of us. And for the students here, thank you for being here and being that future for our community. So with that, I thank you for being here, and I look forward to today's event and for continuing dialogue about sustainability. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Dolores. All right. So our next session today is a climate career panel. So we will have Elliot maybe. Oh. One moment while we get situated. Actually, if you could go back to the other presentation, and then we'll switch to that one very soon. The CCD main podium slides. And while we set this up, I want to invite our career panelists, Carmen, Pablo, and Rita, to come on stage and take a seat, and we will get to you soon.
Right there, yep. So, this climate career panel is called Every Job is a Climate Job. At PIMA, we like to say every class is a climate class, and we believe that every job is a climate job. You can make a difference wherever your career takes you. But we wanted to illustrate those connections a little bit more with the help of some of our amazing PCC folks here, and also a special guest that we will bring on soon. So I wanted to say that the inspiration for this panel came from a student survey that we did in 2023, where we asked our students at PCC how worried they were about the impacts of climate change and other related topics. And the main two things that we got from that survey is that students are very concerned, but they also don't know what to do about that concern. So students are very worried, but they're not too familiar, for example, with careers in fields that are related to climate change and climate solutions. And so we saw a real opportunity here to start addressing that gap. And so I was wondering if, Lucine, you are on the Zoom. Maybe we could have you talk now. So let's see if we can bring her up.
Yes. Can you hear me well?
Great. We can hear you, but we can't see you. We're just going to set you up. Give us 1 minute, okay?
Oh, there she is. And then if, Elliot, you want to bring up the presentation slides that I sent? The ones that I just sent you.
I'm not sure. Okay, perfect.
Yes, perfect. So we're just pulling up your slides now. So I want to introduce to you Lucine Stepanian.
Okay, I'll start. I think there's a disconnect with my audio a little bit, so I will just start the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. So, hi everyone, my name is Lucine Stepanian, or Lucy in short. I am the founder of Climate Campus, which is a digital tool that helps college students to get access to careers in climate and sustainability. I'm also a consultant working for the World Bank, and I work specifically on climate adaptation and resilience in developing countries. So, next, please. So we'll be talking today, what I will be doing specifically is taking a step back from all of the potential career pathways you can have in climate and sustainability and just looking at the general overview. We are at Climate Campus looking at various pathways and trying to develop a framework that will help students and young professionals identify which of the pathways would actually work for them, specifically by trying to understand their interests, their skill set, their degree, and their background, and then match that to a pathway in the space. Why we started doing this is primarily because we, after graduation in 2020, my co-founder and I, we conducted a survey among students where we asked around about climate anxiety and if students were feeling climate anxiety at school specifically. And we've realized that most of the students have, out of 10, they've said 7. So that was the average, how they felt in terms of climate anxiety. And what was interesting is that when asked, what are you specifically doing to address climate anxiety, most of them responded, we're trying to get into careers in climate and sustainability, A, or B, we're trying to start our own initiative and to do something to make a change in the space. And so we realized that what we need to do is actually focus on supporting the students in transitioning into the jobs or starting their initiatives in climate and sustainability. Next, please. Thank you. So we'll talk a little bit about the green reshuffle. It's actually, the term is great reshuffle. which is a term that means when a time when everyone is rethinking everything. This term was coined in 2021, and this time represents a unique opportunity, but at the same time challenge. So there are two factors that are affecting the future of jobs. One is obviously the climate change, and two is AI revolution. So what I did is I changed the term into green reshuffle, since I think all of the jobs today and all of the jobs that are the future will be green jobs. So as you can see, and LinkedIn has conducted a survey before as well, there is a growing demand for workers in green skills. However, this demand is not being met fast enough. So the demand is growing at 8% rate annually over the past 5 years, and the supply only 6%, which creates a huge gap and a huge opportunity for students nowadays to get into climate and sustainability jobs. Next, please. Despite this growing demand, there's a huge gap, like I said, and around the world, again, a study this was conducted by World Economic Forum, they identified there's only 1 out of 8 workers has 1 or more green skills, which is far from the green skill penetration that we need to see. And between 2022 and 2023, LinkedIn showed that there is an increase in the positions that require green jobs by a median of 15.2%, which is 29% higher than the workforce average. Next, please. Some of the common trends that we see in the green job space is sustainable fashion, green entrepreneurship, sustainable agriculture, and renewables. These are the basically the spaces that grow at fastest rate. So sustainable fashion, while this is a very niche skill, actually is one of the fastest growing green skills globally, and it's growing at an average of 90.6%. And you can see that this new trend demonstrates how an industry that has been around for thousands of years now is making a shift into green. Green entrepreneurship, on the other hand, is also blossoming, and this is it's blossoming across multiple industries. And we obviously need young people coming up with new business models and new technologies as fast as possible. And we see a higher growth and faster growth in green entrepreneurship compared to generally entrepreneurships in the US and worldwide. Another common trend we see is increase in sustainable agriculture. So basically this is related mostly to developing countries, but also countries in Asia Pacific. 47% of the total land area is agricultural. And we see that there is an increase in demand for green skills in agriculture. So these are renewable agricultural practices, sustainable ag practices as well. And finally, obviously the renewables and environmental jobs in the US only have increased by 237%, which is in stark contrast in comparison to 19% increase for oil and gas jobs. Next, please. So we've tried to map out some of the skills, some of the green skills that are most in demand or have highest demand nowadays. And this is again based on LinkedIn and some other surveys conducted. So as you can see, carbon footprinting, which is estimating the amount of carbon that's emitted by a company, for instance, environmental law, especially with the recent historical loss and damage fund, we see a lot of cases, increase in a number of cases in environmental law. So there is a need for lawyers in the environmental space. Sustainability reporting and consulting at the same time, and radiation safety, which is a very niche skill, but is also increasing in demand. And finally, climate data analysis. This is based on statistics, but we see that there are many more skills that are high in demand nowadays. Next, please. So this graph is actually borrowed from BART. We've seen some of their work. We've used some of their research in creating our frameworks as well. But what we've tried to do is to show you some of the sectors where you see most of the climate and sustainability jobs and the increase in number of those. So the private sector, these are companies like IBM, Etsy, Morgan Stanley, they're all hiring, they all see increase in demand in sustainability professionals. And nonprofit sector, like Rockefeller Foundations or Gate Foundation, they're all looking for people with green skills. Education, and this we're talking about not just traditional education, but also in private sector, there's a growing demand for professionals, for instance, climate fresk trainers, etc. And finally, international development, which is bilaterals and multilaterals like USAID, UNDP, and the World Bank. Next, please. So at Climate Campus, we've tried to divide the space into buckets and pathways. So these buckets are broader buckets, obviously, that contain pathways. And we're just trying to make sure that it's as simple as possible for the students to understand the broader space. So we have policy, academia, entrepreneurship, business, or corporate. These are the 4 pathways that we have identified. And as you will see in a second, all of these buckets have pathways that can go into one or multiple buckets. Next, please. So the policy bucket, this is for jobs that you can generally see, for example, in the World Bank or bilateral institutions or the government. And for instance, carbon markets is a pathway here as in policy, but we also can see carbon markets as a pathway in business. Next, please. I don't want to go through all of the pathways, but you will receive the framework. We'll send you the framework at the end of this as well, so you can see the broader space and the framework in a nutshell. Next. Yes, so entrepreneurship is, like I said, a very broad bucket and it's very interdisciplinary. So you will see climate tech as one pathway, green industries as another. So for instance, sustainable fashion is, you will see a lot of new initiatives starting out, and these are social enterprises or green entrepreneurs starting businesses in sustainable fashion. Next, please. Yes, we have academia. And I'm going to ask you to go 2 more slides. Yes, and this is a framework that we borrowed from Bard College, and we think it's very simple and it just shows you the space in its entirety. Although I would say that climate and sustainability jobs in general are very nascent and they're fast developing. So every day as we're looking at it, at the space, and we're trying to create a framework to visualize it, we see that there are new things coming up. So we're changing the framework. But hopefully we will have something that is visual, simple, and workable for students to see how to choose careers in climate and sustainability. Next, please. Finally, at Climate Campus, my co-founder and I have created a tool that has 2 components. One is assessment. So what we've developed, we've designed an online assessment where you respond to certain questions about your interest, your background, your skill set, personality, and based on your responses, you're assigned to various pathways that could be a good match for you to consider as a career. And second component is Mentor Hub. And this one is very interesting. So we have already 150 mentors on our platform. These are professionals in climate and sustainability space. And what we do, you sign up and you're matched with various mentors in the space for informational interviews, just to understand the career trajectory that you can take with this, and understand the salaries and the possibilities in the space of your choice. So for you guys, if you scan this QR code, you can sign up for our pilot, which we had the first iteration of the tool in November, and we are launching our next version soon, probably end of April. So we will be providing you with the opportunity to test the tool. Obviously, it's free of charge, open source. And yes, take the assessment, understand what pathways work for you, and talk to a bunch of people in climate and sustainability space and have a better understanding of general where the space is going and where you fit within the space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucine. A round of applause for Lucine, please. Thank you. This is a really helpful, broad overview of what that climate space looks like. And Lucine, I think people can contact you. I will share your email address if anybody has any questions, and they can check out their website with this amazing organization. Next, we're going to move on to sort of drill down into a few more specifics. We have 3 people from PCC here representing 3 very different areas. We have Carmen Cueva she's the director of our advanced manufacturing and also CAD faculty and department head. We have Pablo Toscano, who is our acting academic director of hospitality leadership, and also Rita Lennon, who is the program director and faculty for clinical research and post-degree certification. So welcome all 3 of you. Thank you so much for being here. What we're going to do is we're just going to go from left to right, and if you guys could just give your little 5-minute spiel about how climate intersects with your areas and what career opportunities, and also just how students can make a difference in that space. Thank you. Carmen, take it away.
Hello? Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all here. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. As she mentioned, I'm Carmen, and I am a registered architect, and I'm a LEED accredited professional. And I was just thinking, it must be like 12 years now that I've been a LEED accredited professional, which means it's leadership. It's part of the U.S. Green Building Council, leadership in energy and environmental design. And so, and my master's is in design and energy conservation. So essentially, you can't solve a problem that you aren't aware of. And it doesn't matter what you're interested in, or actually, it matters what you're interested in. It matters where your attention is. It matters where your awareness is. And so I remember when LEED first came out, and it was like, oh, this is just a market gimmick. It was followed by very different organizations that also put together this. So the U.S. Green Building Council, what they do is they do a lot of stuff. But one of the things that they do is they have a checklist for assessing the sustainability of a building. And they were one of the first to do it. It was market-led, because we couldn't get people to participate otherwise. In our competitive environment, competition was the way to go. And so now people could say, oh, I'm LEED Platinum, I'm LEED Silver, I'm LEED certified. And it grew from buildings to neighborhoods to schools to a lot of different things. And so, I saw the American Health Association came up with one. I saw there's the WELL AP, the Living Building Challenge. The American Institute for Architects also came out with the 2030 Challenge. That was years ago. 2030 is much closer than it was back then. But it set certain goals. And I think that the other thing that was really interesting at the time is that, it makes me feel kind of old, but at the time people said, how is this different from doing your job well? How is this different from doing your job ethically? So throughout history, the human race has had a number of different challenges, and that is what we work on, regardless of what profession, what industry you get into. It's a question that impacts all of us, and it needs all of us to solve it. And so specifically coming from advanced manufacturing or from the applied technology division, we make things and we fix things. And there is opportunity everywhere to make climate decisions in our everyday work. Everywhere, everyone. So it's hard for me to sit on the panel and think, in what ways is a job not a climate job, right? And so let's take a look at, so there's, in manufacturing, there tends to be a subtractive process or an additive process. Subtractive process takes things away, an additive process adds things. What do you do with the waste? Where did this come from? How far did you truck it? How easily replaceable is this? Is this object going to last 5 minutes and be thrown away? What will it do underground? Will it leach into our water? Or is this an object that can be used over and over and over again with minimal waste? So there is the issue of materials, and that goes across lots of different industries. But there's also this component of people. Our time and our energy and how it impacts our bodies. Right? How productive you are, if it makes you sick. If something, so buildings in general, the most common building typology is a single family residential home. Anybody familiar with that typology? Anybody know single family home? Okay. That one is a very common building type. It uses a lot of materials, and it is one of the main contributors of climate change, in addition to your car, right? But the reason I say this is because how much material is assigned to you and your family, right? How much land is assigned to you and your family? How far do you have to drive to get to where you need to go? Or can you walk there? Can you drive there? I mean, can you ride your bike there? And then more so, I'm gonna use a big term here, but it's a skin-dominant load. So in thermodynamics, one of the things, why do homes take up so much energy? Because you have to heat and cool them. You have to heat hot water for when you shower. You know, if you shower every day, if you shower once a month, it impacts your water use, hopefully. But if you don't shower every day, you might have to go to the doctor a lot. So then you have to drive there. You know, there's these implications. How are the drugs manufactured? I mean, she's going to talk about all of that. But the implications of not taking care of yourself from a health standpoint, it is part of what we do as architects, as urban designers. Like, where do we put things in our town? As voters, how do we take a look at our land use code and make decisions about whether houses have to be over here and markets have to be over here, right? There's the issue of drive until you qualify. And so skin-dominated buildings means that it's the building skin, the outside, the thermal barrier that is the difference between how much energy you use. At one time, we realized that was important, so we sealed it all up, and people got really sick because they didn't have any fresh air, right? Now we're trying to do a balance. Or we didn't provide any windows, and we closed it all off. Windows are a liability, but it's always this trade-off. And so in commercial buildings like this is an internally dominated building, which means that most of the heat and energy is used by the computers, the lights, the people, the inside stuff, not the outside. So for homes, you need to make sure that that skin is super thermally tight, that prevents heat gain and heat loss. But in a commercial building, it's different. So it doesn't, I mean, we talk about so much when it comes to climate, that's where it's like, how do you do your job well? If you're a philosopher, how are you interpreting? If you're an artist, how are you interpreting this human challenge that brings us all together? How do you create awareness? So wherever your skills, wherever your interests lie, you can make a difference. And even if you are doing your thing every single day, even that makes a difference. But it starts with awareness. So having an understanding about what causes climate change, what perhaps being aware in your own life as to maybe what's not so efficient, what you're seeing, and where you can make a difference, that's where you can make a difference.
Thank you, Carmen. That was wonderful. Rita?
Hi, good morning. Everyone can hear me okay? Great, thank you. So I'm Rita Lennon. I've been in healthcare for over 30 years now. I can't believe I'm saying that. But in that time, I want to tell you that there's two areas that I would really like to talk about today. And as Carmen had mentioned, you know, there's a lot going on in our hospitals as far as like waste goes. You know, once we've used some sort of solution or some sort of infusion, where does that go? That is being addressed, but I'm not going to talk on that topic today. I chose two topics to talk about. First of all, one is addressing our wasteful products, and I'm talking more about all of the small things. Think about when you go to your doctor's office, how many little packages do you see them opening up, and then they use it one time and they throw it away. Those are called single-use products or single-use packages, and they're wasteful. They end up in our landfill for eons and eons. You know, the reason why we do that, of course, is we want to try and make all of you safe while we're using these products. So we were focusing a long time ago when we were manufacturing these things on patient safety. Well, now we need to shift that over and think of how could we use alternative packaging, how could we extend shelf life of our products so that we're not just throwing away a bunch of products. Because another one of our issues in hospitals and medical facilities is how much we order. If you can think about 4 years ago, we were running out of product. And so we were hoarding toilet paper, all of us. Well, hospitals were having to do the same thing because we were running out of products to help save lives. So those practices didn't start, unfortunately, around 2019. It's something that we've always done. We've always kind of ordered things and held them in big storage units in our hospitals and medical facilities. And then when the shelf life is done, we can't do anything with those products. We can't give them to Doctors Without Borders. They can't accept them. We can't give them to anybody. They end up in our landfill. So a lot of research has now come out about extending shelf life to assure that it's still the products that we use to diagnose you and to treat you are still effective and safe to use when we have done those studies on shelf life. But you know, that's one of the things that we needed to consider. Another thing that we thought of is, well, how do we know when we need to order all of these products? You know, how often do we need to use them? So now we have analytics, so think of IT and manufacturing and supply chain logistics. They've come up with software to kind of give us an idea of, well, how often does hospital A use this product? How often will they need to order that so that they're not throwing it away? So they're not having to donate it to someone that can't use it. So those are some of the places that we have kind of shifted our thought process to improve how we work. I wanted to tell you about a study that we did in 2009. This was done by Berwick and Hackbarth for the Institute of Medicine, and they had estimated that about 30 to 46%, that's billions of dollars of our US money, goes to hospital waste. In 2019, they repeated that study, and we're down to about 20%, so we're getting a little bit better. We're no longer at 45%, but still, we have some ways to go. And all of you in this room who are learning about how to change your lives and your worlds, you could go into a field that could help us reduce these costs even more. So we also have issues with our changing environment as we're listening to how water usage changes, how extreme environment and climate things are going on around us. We have to think about that, how that's going to affect us. So diseases that used to affect us maybe in our 50s, 60s, or 70s are now starting to affect people in their 30s or 40s. Do we have the capability to diagnose them, to mitigate it if we can, to educate them, or to treat it if we can't do anything about mitigation? Those are things we're going to have to consider. Also, other diseases that we don't even know about yet, how are we going to research those to determine, who they're going to affect, what regions of the world will they affect, how much of an effect will they have? These are all things that we need to consider as well. So I have a couple of programs that you might be interested in if any of this sparks an interest or piques your interest. First of all, the program that I run, of course, I'm going to start with that one. So the Associate of Applied Science in Clinical Research, that's what we do, is we study diagnostic procedures. We study the way that folks are treated. Do we need to start them with a medication, or can we start with something else? Maybe just education will start, and we can abate the need to use such harsh medications so early on in a diagnosis. So that's something that clinical research does. You could also go on and get your bachelor's and master's in public health. That's what I have, and a couple of others in the audience have. So public health educators, what we do is, we look at the statistics of diseases. How many people does it affect? Is it an epidemic? Is it local? Is it a pandemic? Is it global? And we try to find ways to mitigate and also treat those so that they're not going to just cause problems forever, that we can kind of shorten the life of that. If healthcare is not something you're interested in, there's also a certificate and also an Associate of Applied Science in Logistics and Supply Chain. Let's try to figure out a way to mitigate the need to order all of the stuff that's just going to sit somewhere for a long time, not get used, and then end up in a landfill. How about we come up with better analytics so we don't have to do such things? And finally, there's information technology. If you are interested more in information technology, there's data analytics, so like health information technologists who go in and do more of the informatics at a hospital level. Again, back to that public health where we're doing that more in a community level. That's really all I got. I hope I was within my 5 minutes. I apologize if I went over. I get so excited about this topic.
Thank you,
Thanks so much
Rita.
for listening.
Thank you. And next we have Pablo Toscano. Welcome.
Testing, testing. Good morning, and thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us and to talk about and to hear about and to educate ourselves on this initiative and why it's important. And I think it always starts off with understanding and awareness, as you've mentioned as well. So I want to talk about hospitality and how we can use that industry as a vehicle for this type of initiative. As you know, hospitality is everywhere, right? It's in doctors' offices, that's obviously in hotels and restaurants, those are the bigger ones, right? But it's also in your home. It's also in human behavior. So part of that is because it's everywhere and you are a team of one, you can always model these behaviors for yourself, and especially if you're in hospitality, for those of you students who wish to enter a career in hospitality, you're always using yourself and your actions as a model for others. The reason I say that is because just how we are an open campus here, an open enrollment, same thing with hospitality, right? A lot of people's first jobs are in hospitality. So because of that, maybe a lot of those learners haven't gone to college, haven't received that type of training to really compartmentalize what that means and how to act upon them. So it's really up to the leadership of hospitality. So this is where students can find themselves modeling that behavior. And what does that behavior mean? Well, let me dial it back a little bit. Let's talk about the industry. So the industry went through what everybody else did, right? I think it was referred to earlier, I think it was great, as a green reshuffle, right? So because hospitality was one of the first that was heavily hit, we were forced to, as an industry, we were forced to make that shift right away, right? There was travel restrictions, there was hotels got completely closed down, Disneyland closed down. So these are a lot of places that humans go, and to have an experience. And really that's what hospitality is. It's managing that hospitality or managing that experience for humans so that they can feel better about themselves, about living life to its fullest, right? Feeling that feeling of enlightenment. That's why you go to these places, to lose yourself in a way, right? So during that time, they noticed in that green shift that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers, so new market segments are coming in, and they're willing to pay a premium for that type of sustainability. And that's never been done before. It's been something that's been an initiative, and I've heard it earlier in the talks where it was just talk but not action. So this green reshuffle, it put that market segment. Now we're thinking business-wise, right? If there's a market segment for it, that means that there's going to be investment, which means there's it enables an organization to reach those consumers to spend that premium. So right now we're in that special spot. I don't know if there we go. We're in that special spot where the demand is willing to pay that premium, where in entrepreneurship, and I think that's another one, right? Green entrepreneurship is now willing to put in that money to meet that willingness to pay. And what does that mean? Well, that can mean anything from, we talked about biodegradable toilet paper all the way on up to maybe shifting your whole transportation fleet to electronic vehicles, or everything in between, right? These are just physical things that we can do, but there's also intangible things that we can take care of as well. And I think that starts off with the workforce. That starts off with the culture. And the same thing here. Our chancellor just talked about a culture of care and how that is done by little, influencing others to follow suit. That's really what we're doing here with this initiative, right? So the way we use hospitality is that we're providing that, we're facilitating that place for humans to feel open. And when you're feeling open, there's other channels that are coming in, because you're not dealing with, if you're, I don't know, sitting down at a restaurant, or maybe you're whisked away to a resort and you're on the beach. Chances are you're not thinking about that spreadsheet that we left. You know, we're not thinking about aligning any course learning outcomes or anything quite yet, right? We're enjoying that time. But during that time, you're also more observant. So you're observing how things function, you're observing different cultures, and because it's a worldwide industry, it has the potential to really influencing a whole new generation around the world. And that really is based upon having a reason to do that. So if we have all this initiative talk, but there's not really an outlet to do that, then it's going to be tough to model. So what I'd like to do is kind of expand your mind a little bit and to see that you really don't have to be anywhere. You could actually just start from within. And I believe that as you have your own initiative, you create your own culture. What if it's at your house, your household? We just talked about how much waste comes out of your household. You can start there and practice those. And as you practice those, just like you exercise your muscles, you get stronger and you get better, right? And as that's happening, once you graduate, you get into college, and I'm speaking to the students here. This is why we're talking about this, right? So you're asking, we're at anxiety level 7 here. So we want to make sure that we use that anxiety to maybe kickstart you or springboard you into new actions. And those actions can be defined just by educating yourself, like we had talked about earlier. There's tons of different initiatives or just tons of different types of suggestions that you can do that's very localized, just around your arm's length, so to speak. And I believe that as you do that, you start building your own culture, you start building your own personality that people will start to look up to. They want to be like you because you make it look easy, you make it look fun, and you have this feel-good feeling about yourself because you maybe are not paying the premium, but you're investing in other fashions. You're investing in actions and smaller things here and there where you can now push your employees, your culture, your family, your household to do a little bit more as well. And maybe by doing that, it's a sense of togetherness, it's a sense of community, and with that equals more power to that initiative. And then slowly but surely, just as we spoke earlier, that's what builds that cultural understanding. Then it becomes the norm. Then it just becomes the way to do it. And that's really what these talks are about. How can we just crank that up so that way, what's next after Gen Z? What is does it start over again? Gen AA? I don't know. Alpha, thank you. That was kind of close. So then Gen Alpha, thank you, by the way, will start to pick up that baton, right, and take it to new heights and hopefully it's not something like a worldwide pandemic that causes this paradigm shift to do that. I think it already served its purpose, and we're already starting to see that, especially in hospitality, not only in the initiatives, but in the branding, that investment that I was telling you guys about earlier, right? It's becoming part of that brand. So just as I was saying, you make that initiative your own, brands are starting to do that as well. They're starting to kind of intertwine those practices and those facilitation practices with their brand, which is exactly what we're looking for, right? Because eventually all brands are going to follow suit as they always do. They become influenced within their own industry. And that's why I'll circle back down to hospitality and how important it is. Because I believe we have the biggest stage. We have the largest stage because we're everywhere, and we reach people professionally, we reach people personally on a global scale. And not only that, but different socioeconomic sectors as well. Whether you're working in hospitality or you just you utilize it for whatever that's worth, whether it's a vacation or you're just waiting to get your teeth cleaned and there's a magazine and there's music playing in the background. Maybe you pick up that magazine that is talking about a green initiative. You know, so as you're in hospitality, you're actually absorbing what's around you, and hopefully that industry is meeting that interest with facilitating things around you so that you can start to build those practice techniques. Let's talk about PCC really quick here. So now we're talking about the brand of PCC and what we're trying to do here. So there are smaller things, like for hospitality, we like to obviously host events. So we have here in the district what's called hospitality funds. So as you request these hospitality funds from the district, there's going to be constant reminders, hey, how are you approaching these green initiatives? What are you using these funds for? Is there a way that maybe you can gravitate toward vendors that have that same ideology? Right now we're perpetuating this idea through our own spending and our own collaboration with others. So these are small things, but yet they make impact little by little as we're just conducting business. Also, starting from the workforce, I think that's important. So here we go again with our graduates. As we build our curriculum, or constantly build our curriculum, we're doing things like infusing ideas like HSI, right? Hispanic Serving Institution ideas. So because we're doing that, we also are looking at things like sustainability practices within our content. And I think that's really big as well because that's intrinsic, right? You're going through this process. We can consider that an experience, just like we were just talking about. This human experience, this is an academic experience, so those channels are open. You may not be sitting on a beach somewhere, but you are sitting in a classroom, so those same bandwidths are still open for ingesting new information, right, in a positive and meaningful way. So this is what we're trying to do locally as a program. So I want to take that with you and invite you also, if you do have any other personal initiatives to take this further, to come check out our program, because we do have a lot of different types of management skills, leadership building curriculum that'll help you understand the initiative and where it's going within our industry. And you can take that and apply it to any other industry because, like I said, hospitality is very wide. It's a people-centric thing, and it involves culture, it involves experience, and everything that is required to push an initiative forward in a positive way. That's all I have. Thank you so much, by the way.
Thank you, Pablo. Everybody, I also wanted to call, we have a special guest with us today, Heidi Kujawa. Would you like to come up to the stage and share a few words about your experience as the CEO of Bifusion, a startup in the climate space? We would love to hear from you, and we'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we'll have a time for some questions for all 4 panelists. And we will also share with you their emails and contacts if you have further questions.
Wasn't really expecting this, but hi, everybody. My name is Heidi Kujawa. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Bifusion. How many of you guys are aware of Mayor Romero's, oh good, great, plastic waste program? Awesome, awesome. So yeah, we're the ones who are helping to divert that from the landfill. So I'm happy to say, like, over the last couple of years, we've been focused on, we've developed a system that is designed to repurpose non-recyclable plastic waste into a reusable building material called BiBlock. BiBlock is designed to be the most sustainable, versatile building material on the market. It's really positioned to help substitute our dependency on hollow cement blocks and 2x4s, which are natural common resources that we use all the time, have a significant impact on carbon, and also just helps, impacts our nature a lot. You know, it takes a lot to mine for concrete, and of course, we need our trees to suck carbon out of the world and not necessarily keep cutting them down. So I'm really excited to be here. We have done a lot with this community. I've been completely inspired by the work you guys have done and how much you've embraced. I'm glad to report that you guys in the drop-off locations alone have diverted over 220 tons of plastic waste to date. And I'm even happier that of the blocks that we were able to make, over 70% came back to Tucson and were in construction projects around the city. So congratulations. I mean, this is, the world is watching what's going on in this community. I can insert to that. The other thing that's interesting is that part of the work that we've done with Mayor Romero and City Council is to actually bring our operations here. So we're based right now in Los Angeles, and we're currently expanding in cities across the country and even in Europe and Asia. We're talking to a number of partners, but Tucson's going to be the first one. And one of the things that I'm excited about bringing to the community is, of course, jobs. We're here to help with the number of green jobs, bringing green jobs to the community. We help within our platform and operations, not only on the technology side. We're a very heavy data-centric company. We're evidence-based company, focused solely on transparency. So we can tell you not only where the plastic waste came from, but where it went back in society and how it benefited with CO2 emissions and landfill diversion. So there's a big data component and technology component to what we do. I believe Mayor will be announcing or releasing our diversion report from last year to the community here shortly, and that'll be available on our website too. It's pretty cool. In addition to the data, we also provide a map, a repurposed map, so you can actually see the different projects that have buy block in them, and there's some really beautiful things going up. If you guys are around Mission Gardens, there's a beautiful art walk that diverted over 6 tons of plastic waste. Over a ton of marine debris went in that wall also, and it's gorgeous. So go check it out. But in addition to the data jobs on the tech side, there's also an operation, so actually being able to be on the front lines and creating buy blocks, so manufacturing jobs with creating that building material, and then more importantly and even more exciting is bringing additional workforce into the construction industry. The cool thing about buy block is that anybody can build with it. It's literally like an adult Lego. You don't need any glues, mortars, or adhesives. They screw together with post-tensioning, which makes it reusable. And so to do that, we can actually provide a lot more opportunities for people to get involved in rebuilding their neighborhoods and revitalizing their communities everywhere. So I'm excited to come here. The construction is for our new facility is underway down at Los Reales at the Sustainability Campus. And so you'll be hearing a lot from us about some jobs coming to the community really soon. So thank you for letting me do that little plug.
Thank you, Heidi. That was great. We have time for 1 or 2 questions before we have to move on. But yeah.
I love buy block. I saw it at Steve K's office, and when I looked at it, I thought, how cute for kids' furniture. But I wondered about off-gassing and if it is appropriate for indoor use.
That's a really great question, actually. So being an engineer, that was something that I really cared about, too. I mean, plastic is a very complex product, and there's many different types of it. So as soon as something that resembled a block popped out of my machine, I started working with ICC on the construction side and Underwriters Laboratories on the environmental side. So buy blocks are thoroughly tested both for emissions to help with the use. So we have an environmental panel across all of the blocks from a usage perspective, but also our manufacturing process. So Underwriters Laboratories has been a huge partner in making sure that we comply with the regulations associated with off-gassing and plastic. We do use it for internal applications. We have a bunch of lead construction projects already. Our first house, actually, permitted house, went up in Flagstaff just last year. It's really great facility. So we've got a lot of experience in that area. So yeah, lots of testing, and we'll continue to do more and more testing. Plastic is an evolving material, so we care a lot about that.
Carmen, go ahead.
I wanted to kind of tie some of these comments together. First of all, I want to clarify to all the young students in the room that green isn't just about waste management.
Yes.
Okay, I think that right now it's really easy to make that assumption, but I think management is a better focus point to that, and I could list off basically every career that's coming. Well, I can't. That's coming, but that all of them have to do with green initiatives. In speaking about hospitality is going to be the most impacted by climate change, right? If we take a look at Sedona as one example, it's highly touristic, and it has it gets a lot of wear and tear because of the number of people. And so how do we begin to preserve that? Everything that we're talking about ends up being at that higher price point that people are willing to pay a little bit more. And every time we do that, we're creating a bigger divide from a social justice standpoint. Nobody can actually, the people that work in Sedona can't actually live in Sedona, right? There's a housing crisis, so they have to live in adjacent communities because Sedona itself is too expensive, right? Years ago, I worked on a grant at the university. We partnered with public health to go door to door in a local stressed neighborhood and talked about healthy homes. What was their air quality? Did they have access to just walking on a sidewalk to do basic exercise? And they didn't. So what did we do? We put together plans to do bike corridors and improve the walking conditions and all of that. So it's also a creative job. It's finding solutions that haven't necessarily existed before. I think that waste management has been a big idea because we have not paid attention to it for too long. We got really excited about disposable things, and we never really looked back until it became a problem. That's the issue. And as we're starting to move into this new market, I just saw a product maybe a year and a half ago that is building integrated photovoltaics for roofing. So as I mentioned, the single family house is one of the biggest contributors. Like, it competes with manufacturing as far as pollution in the environment because of its energy consumption, because of its land use and all these things. And so they made this case that right now we're in a situation where the roof is necessary, but the solar voltaics is a luxury. And this particular product was trying to say that, if you get your roof done and then you put photovoltaics, then you undo the warranty of your roof, and they won't cover your roof, and there's this tension between how these things go and who's responsible for what. So this company was integrating the photovoltaics in a really easy plug-and-play method that specifically replaced asphalt shingle. Not tile, not all the other things, because if we think, again, from a social justice standpoint, asphalt shingle is one of the least expensive, and it's most widely used, and it's the one that needs to be replaced everywhere. And so now, all of a sudden, you can choose a product that does both, right? It's no longer can you afford the luxury of a roof without it, right? And so there's a lot to think about. It is a creative field. It's all about management. It's all about just when you make decisions, what are your values? And are those values integrated? Do you want to preserve places that we can go visit? Do you want to have a place to live near where you work? Do you want to spend 5 hours of your day every single day inside on traffic? So then new urbanism, for example, starts to pull those centers and make lots of little centers to a scale that allows us to live, work, and play, something we've lost, the third place, all in, in a more sustainable way, where we get our food, where we get our products and all of it. So
Thank you, Carmen. That's, yeah.
there's
A round of applause to everybody again. I'm sorry there's no more time. We need to move on to the next session. But I hope you'll continue these conversations throughout the day. And now I am going to introduce Crystal McKenna, who is our new Climate Action and Sustainability faculty, and she's going to lead us through the next session.
Wonderful, thank you. I would like to invite our community organizations to kind of gather towards the stage here. We're going to give everyone who is attending the event through an organization or tabling today a little bit of a chance to tell you about what they're doing in hopes that you will then also visit their table during lunchtime and learn a little bit more about what you can do to get involved in their organization. Each of these organizations were chosen and invited to this event because they are taking actionable steps in our community. So we would like you to just get to know them a little bit better. So first up, we are going to talk with Rocky from ACE and Lucha.
You can take that back, Rob.
Yep, there you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rocky. I'm an environmental justice organizer with ACE, Arizona Center for Empowerment, who is a sister organization of 501c4 Lucha, or Live United for Change in Arizona. We are a member-led organization that develops and mobilizes working adult and youth throughout our communities, and through marginalized communities. We found out that there was a major issue going on with environmental justice in the state. Using our People First economy and our Lucha Listens model, we have developed a campaign called the Water Guardians Campaign. And what this campaign is going to do is going to address corporate abuse and overuse of our water, the pollution that they have caused to the 39 Superfund sites spread throughout our state. It's going to bring education awareness to what resource extraction, the effect resource extraction has on our water, the effect that, different, industries have on our water, including, our famous Raytheon, who actually poisoned our water one time. We have a lot of industrial zones being built on the south side of Tucson. We want to make sure that the EPA is going to hold up their standards on making sure that those industries do not pollute our water again as they did before. Along with that, every movement does have, or every campaign does have a North Star. Our North Star is to unite the 30 indigenous nations that actually lie within the state of Arizona, throughout the actual basin of the Colorado River as well. And we hope to one day claim sacredity over the Colorado River and actually provide personhood status to it, like that has been done in other countries on different bodies of water there. What that would do, that would actually give the Colorado River rights as a person. She would not be able to be abused and overused, and hopefully one day we'll be able to see her actually kiss Acia Cortez again. Yes. So what we're doing right now is, if you always want to know how, we've heard about, political policy and co-governance and all that. We actually do provide a political platform, a political container to fill up. That's what we're trying to do here. We're not here to member jump or steal anybody's volunteers, anything like that. We're trying to build a coalition to actually go ahead and bring awareness to our water crisis we have in this state.
And Rocky, where is your table located?
My table is located right back there. We actually have something called coming up this weekend called Movement Builders Training. It's how we show the model that we use, which is Marshall Gann's model. That is a proven model on how to build base, to advocacy, to create a movement, to create policy, to bring the community to us, to listen to the community, and yeah, that's what we do here. So my table's right back there. If you guys want to get involved, I do have a sign-up sheet back there. I do have a QR code back there I can share you off for Movement Builders Training. It's this weekend again. It is going to be catered by the Guadalajara Original Girls. So if you all want to come out and enjoy some good food and learn how we build a movement, come on out.
Thank you, Rocky. Also, just for everyone's information, the Padlet QR code that you were given as you were coming in today also has everyone's website links so that you can always explore more at that point. So we're going to have Julie from Watershed Management Group next.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Julie Regalado, and I'm from Watershed Management Group. Can I see a raise of hands? How many of you know about us? A few. Okay, that's cool. All right, thank you. So we are a nonprofit located in Midtown Tucson. We've been around for 20 years. We were started by 4 students from University of Arizona. And our vision is to restore the heritage flow of Tucson's waterways. We do that by taking a community-based approach to eradicating invasive species, to restoration of our waterways, as well as reintroduction of beavers to the San Pedro. We also educate about how to live well with water that we receive from snowmelt, from rain, gray water, and storm water. At our demonstration site, we are on rainwater most of the time. And the reason why we're able to do that is because we don't use flushing toilets. We have composting toilets. And we do a lot of workshops to teach people how to be what we call hydrolocal, to reduce dependency on the distant watershed of Colorado. So we have these free workshops to teach about things like composting toilets, passive and active rainwater harvesting, planting native edible plants, and all of these are at the demonstration site, so people get to see how they might be able to do this at home or in their neighborhoods or in their workplaces. One of the ways we do this is we have a fairly small staff, but we have a lot of volunteers. A lot of docents come to work with us, often retirees. We also have a big internship program. And we've been talking to Pima Community College about how the work that we do can overlap with the studies that students are doing here. It has been pretty clear that lots of people out in the world want to have help with, for instance, active and passive rainwater harvesting. They also want help with gray water systems. Who are the plumbers that know how to do those gray water systems? So we're excited to be talking to Pima Community College about how we might be able to infuse some of our work with the education that's going on here. And along with that, we actually have some internships that we are offering. Often our students for our internships come from University of Arizona, but we've started putting them into grants. And that means that we can make those internships available to more people, and not only from the university. And so if you want to know more about that, we have a QR code. We have lots of QR codes too. We have a QR code back there at the table. We're in the back corner. Maya, raise your hand. There's Maya in the green shirt. Leave it. Yeah? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Julie. All right, next we have Annabelle with Arizona Youth Climate Coalition.
Hi everyone, my name's Annabelle. I'm a senior in high school and I'm with Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. So basically the whole idea of our org is we're a statewide youth-led org striving for intersectional climate justice. We're ages 11 to 23, so some of you are just like a little above the age limit, and I'm sorry for that, I am, because it's really fun over here. We do a lot of different things. We do a lot of direct action. Just last fall, we organized this huge strike and summit event for Global Day of Climate Action, organized by Fridays for Future. That was really cool. We also do a lot of policy work. We lobby a lot. We meet with our legislators a lot. And we actually were really lucky that we got to work with the city of Tucson on their climate action adaptation plan a couple years ago, which was really cool. And right now we're working with TUSD to try and pass them a climate resolution. We also do a lot of community engagement, a lot of mutual aid, and just in general like civic engagement. And yeah, we just really believe that getting youth involved in climate activism is really important because we've seen a lot of change, we've seen a lot of drive for change from youth-led orgs and youth climate activists. That's not to say though that, you know, climate activists of other ages have also, you know, they've laid out the infrastructure that's there for us already, and we really appreciate that. And yeah, you should totally come to our table because it's super cool, guys.
Where's your table, Annabelle?
That's it. Yeah.
Where's your table?
Oh, yes. So my table is in the back there. It's by Rocky's table. My sign keeps falling off. So if you see a sign that's like hanging, you know, by like one corner, that's mine. Okay.
Thank you. Let's hear for Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. All right. Next, we have possibly my favorite name of a group. So this is the Great Old Broads for Wilderness.
Hi, everybody. Boy, you're a hard act to follow. The youth climate folks are doing fantastic work. My name's Andrea Herr. You can call me Dre, like the doctor. Yeah, so Great Old Broads for Wilderness, we engage, we started out 35 years ago. We've got 40 chapters all around the country, primarily in the West, working on water and public lands. We're very active in things in Arizona, things like Oak Flat and supporting the San Carlos Apache tribe. We're right now fighting against the copper mine in Santa Rita. In fact, we'll be hosting a roundtable this afternoon, so please come if you're interested in mining and some of the issues that come along with mining. Finally, I just wanted to point out that broadness is a state of mind. It's not a state of age. So please consider visiting our table and see what kind of work we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Samantha with Sustainable Tucson.
Howdy. Hi, I'm Samantha. So Sustainable Tucson started in 2006. It is a local nonprofit that's very focused on Tucson and Southern Arizona. You couldn't tell by the name. So we do a lot of different things and are very interconnected on a broad range of issues here in Tucson. So if there is a flavor of sustainability that you are interested in, we most likely have something going on in that area. I'll talk a little bit about our working groups. So basically we have different issue-focused committees and working groups that lead community projects in action, like zero waste, habitat restoration, building resilience, by building community, water, and energy transformation. And we also do a lot of trainings and workshops and advocacy and community engagement. So if you're interested, our table is outside in the hallway where we have a lot of information on things currently happening. And check out our website and our Facebook. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Tina with Prescott College.
Sorry, I'm short. I have to adjust this. Morning, everyone. How many times have you guys heard that in life, if you have a passion, you can achieve? There's definitely a partial truth in that statement. So if you do pursue something with passion, you are more likely to be successful. Allow me to clarify. So if I told you guys I had a passion for saving seabirds from climate change, a few of you might smile. I might even get some eye rolls. If I said I had monitored seabirds, specifically brown pelicans on Alcatraz Island, to see the impact of El Nino on the species, and that I had found that only 6.9% of the population were that year's young, whereas a healthy population would have had 20%, would you not be more impressed by my passion? Would it be because I had pursued something with my passion? Would it offer more credibility? Well, some of you in this room might not be familiar with Prescott College. If I shared with you that we are passionate about making the world a better place, some of you might be intrigued. What if I shared with you that Dr. Crystal McKenna, one of our organizers today, is an alumnus? Would that offer more credibility to you? To know that she was able to pursue her passions with us and then share those passions with you today. By combining our passions into our pursuits, we can accomplish so much more. We hold a level of credibility in others' eyes, and I am here today representing Prescott College in hopes of helping you further pursue your passions. So please feel free to stop by my table in the back and ask me all about brown pelicans.
Thank you, Tina. Next, we have Jane with Citizens Climate Lobby Tucson.
Thank you, Crystal. So good morning to everybody. I'm here to tell you about nonpartisan Tucson Citizens Climate Lobby. We're one of 543 chapters around the world. We're volunteers who work together to build a carbon-free economy in the U.S. and all around the world. In other words, to create a livable, safer future. We advocate for science-proven policies that are fair, effective, and fast. We advocate at the national, the state, and the local level for
a price on carbon with revenue that goes back to people, for electrification of our economy, for permitting reform, so we can get the energy from the rural areas back to the cities where we need them the most. And we also advocate for healthy forests, urban and rural, and for natural sequestration. We lobby our elected officials. We write letters to the press. We talk to the press. We talk to people at events like this. And we talk to businesses and community leaders. And we work to grow our chapter and get more people involved, like Crystal. We meet here in the Amethyst Room once a month. We are partnering with Tucson Audubon, an environmental voter project, to get more Tucson voters who care about the environment casting their ballots, not only in the 2024 election, but in every election. So I hope you'll stop by our table. We're outside. And if you are ready to work for a healthy planet, you've come to the right place, TucsonCCL.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. All right, next I have the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection.
Hello, everyone. My name is Johnny Zeman. I'm with the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection. At the Coalition, we work with our team and our member groups to protect the biodiversity of the Sonoran Desert here in Pima County. As you know, there are many threats to the Sonoran Desert, which include climate change, its impacts on our ecosystem, our wildlife, our water availability, and other threats include habitat loss and fragmentation. And so at the Coalition, we work together with our member groups to mitigate the harms from these threats through advocacy, community science, and collaborative projects. Some of the projects we're working on right now you can actually get involved in. We have our habitat restoration days every month, and we actually have one this Saturday, and where we're restoring the native habitat on the Sonoran Desert's only wildlife crossing bridge over Oracle Road. We're also working with the Desert Fence Busters to remove legacy fencing, barbed wire fences that are no longer necessary, that are harming wildlife. They're decreasing the connectivity of habitats, so by removing them, we're helping the wildlife get to where they need to go. And we're also working with our wildlife camera program, where we monitor native wildlife as they're crossing through wildlife linkages. And these projects you can get involved in. We have lots of volunteer opportunities. Like I said, this Saturday, you can come with us to our Habitat Restoration Day. We're going to be planting some native vegetation and removing invasive species such as bufflegrass. We're tabling right outside. So if you'd like to come say hi, meet Jessica and I, get a free sticker. We'd love to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Johnny. All right, next we have Tucson Audubon.
Good morning, everybody. Good. Isaiah and I are from Tucson Audubon Society. We're a local nonprofit. We work to inspire people to enjoy and protect birds through recreation, education, restoration, and conservation of the habitats that we all depend on. We involve people through recreational birding and educational activities for both youth and adults. We engage people in direct conservation actions like planting native plants and installing birdhouses to help our local cavity nesting birds. We also engage people in community science of counting and reporting birds to the largest community science databases, both internal and global. And we also work collaboratively with a lot of other state, local, and national policymakers and agencies in bird conservation. There's 3 main ways to get involved with Tucson Audubon Society. You could become a member. An introductory membership is $35 and offers some perks. And as a nonprofit, memberships and donations and grants help us keep going. We also would encourage you to sign up as a volunteer or to receive volunteer updates. I started at Tucson Audubon as a volunteer and an intern in order to build my resume while I was going to U of A for a wildlife degree. I am now a full-time employee. I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but it did help me get involved in a lot of amazing projects here on the ground and working with the community. And finally, you could also just sign up for general emails, and we advertise a lot of local community events, happenings, advocacy alerts, things like that. So do come see us. Our table is just outside the atrium here, and I'll pass it on to Isaiah here as well.
Thanks, Lilia. Yeah, we do so much, apart from working with other organizations and local government to not just like influence policy, but actually do like work out in the field. We have a massive like strike team and restoration crews that they'll spray buffalo grass, fountain grass, right? They'll take care of like invasive plants like that while working with the county, with the city. We've partnered with ACE before to try and just like canvas to get more support for doing something about the PFAS in the water system, right? We're also trying to work with like some historic barrios for trash cleanups because there's a ton of trash in the Santa Cruz. We're actually having one coming up on April 20th next to Barrio Hollywood. So there's a lot going on. I feel like we're mostly like on the same page in here, you know. We care about the environment and we want to do something about it. So thanks for being here. Thanks for having us. Come say hello.
Thank you, Leah and Isaiah. All right, next we have the Santa Cruz Valley National Heritage Area.
Thank you. So in 2019, a really, really special thing happened in this region. 3,300 square miles of the Santa Cruz River watershed from Marana and Oro Valley all the way down to our border in Nogales were designated a National Heritage Area by the U.S. Congress and signed into law by the President. We are one of 62 national heritage areas in the country, and they are created to recognize the significant contributions that a region has made in the development of our country and into the American story. The Santa Cruz Valley is important because of its abundance and diversity of natural, cultural, and historic resources. For more than 12,000 years, people have lived along the Santa Cruz River and the O'odham and their ancestors for more than 4,000 years. And today, you live here, so that's pretty important. Our mission at the Santa Cruz Valley National Heritage Area is to connect people to the historic and cultural foundations and the living landscape of the Santa Cruz Valley, and to actively work toward its long-term stewardship. We receive assistance through the National Park Service, but we are a community-led grassroots organization, a nonprofit with 2.5 employees, and the only way we can get our work done is through community partnerships. A number of them are here today, and through volunteerism. Some of the things that you can help to volunteer with are cleanups. We're participating in one this Sunday at Patagonia Lake, the state park, free admission if you come for the cleanup. The April 20th cleanup, but we do invite you to visit our booth outside, our table, to learn more about different ways you can contribute your special skills, talents, and interests as an ambassador to educate, preserve, and celebrate this incredible place that many people like yourselves call home. Our website is santacruzheritage.org, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we just launched our 2nd annual grant program yesterday, where we award educational institutions, nonprofits, and government entities. Probably we'll have a fund of about $200,000 this year. And a number of the organizations from last year are here, so it's good to see this work is getting done. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, we have the Community Gardens of Tucson.
Hi,
Okay, there we go. My name is Brittany, and I'm with the Community Gardens of Tucson. We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Our mission is to our mission is to build community gardens where Tucsonans can grow food, work, and learn together, as well as nurture well-being in our communities. Essentially, we provide community garden plots. So we have 20 gardens across Tucson. We collaborate with property owners in various different ways. Some are residentially owned, some are churches, some are schools, some are parks. And our gardens, essentially, each garden is sort of unique in its own way. They vary between 20 to almost 40 plots per garden. Each garden is 20 feet by 3 feet. We provide automatic irrigation for those gardening plots, as well as a shed with tools and supplies for them to garden. Additionally, we provide community gathering areas, as that's a really big component of the community gardens is connecting with your neighbors and other gardeners to learn and grow together. So essentially, we also have additional programs, including education. We offer a Kids in Gardens education program where we bring school kids out to the gardens during their school period and educate on essentially where food comes from and kind of get their hands dirty. We also offer a food resiliency program, which essentially is financial assistance for joining the gardens. We do request a nominal fee to join the gardens in order to cover the essentials for continuing that garden maintenance, such as, paying water and the like. However, we have a sliding scale to join the garden, so anybody who wants to join the garden can on that sliding scale. And finally, we definitely encourage volunteerism. We have 3 part-time and full-time employees for the organization, and we rely heavily on volunteerism to do what we do. We also are a qualified charitable tax organization, so essentially a 501c3 where folks can donate and receive that eligibility. And then finally, we of course join anybody who would like to garden with us to come check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Next we have Tucson Verde Rotary Club.
Good morning, all. I represent Rotary Club of Tucson Verde, and it's an exciting time here in southern Arizona. Rotary International in 2019 approved from the original 5 areas of focus, a 6th area of focus, and that was environmental sustainability. And in August of 2021, this local Rotary Club was formed with 1 area of focus, and that is, again, the environment. We're very excited. We have a number of members from ages 26 to 94. Very important is we have paired with an international connection in Lago de Iguala, and we received internationally the very first environmental grant in sponsorship with the Rotary Club of Iguala for a river and watershed cleanup. So we have something to brag about. We are the very first environmentally focused Rotary Club in all the state of Arizona. And we do have a table outside in the breezeway. And some of our focus has been connecting people locally to do the projects we need to do, because it starts at the smallest level. So we do have an area of focus, but our members are committed to making a difference in Tucson's environmental sustainability by helping to protect the fragile desert ecosystems through monthly projects. We welcome anyone to contact us via our website. Lots of information there. It is rotarytucsonverde.com. And we have a number of projects this month. We've just finished a very successful new project with the Tucson Rodeo. In their 99th year, they have never done any recycling. and we started it. So we're very excited. We diverted at least 25% of all of the waste that usually goes to the landfill, and it was everything from the plastics for the bi-block by fusion. We probably collected 1.5 tons of that, a couple tons of aluminum cans. I personally moved about 500 pounds of glass, really big whiskey bottles. It was amazing. And then lots of other waste, cardboard. So our goal is, in working with the rodeo committee, is since they have their 100th anniversary next year, I floated the idea, 100 years of rodeo, 100% recycling. That's going to be our goal. So we're out there making a difference. Rotary are people of action. We have a number of focus areas: waste reduction, resource conservation, recycling, preservation, policy, outreach, and education. A number of the groups that are here today, we've already partnered with them. I want to do a shout out to Waste Management Group. They're going to be out helping us a little bit on the 21st of April. Put this on your calendars. It is Rotary Club Tucson Verde's first venture into some sort of fundraiser, and it is a home and building tour, environmental sustainability. And WMG will have their facilities open then as part of a tour. I welcome all of you to get out there. Join us. Also, if you want to volunteer, we do everything from Ishkashita refugee, picking the fruits and distributing those to the refugees, working with Mission Garden. We're very excited about partnering with the bi-block by fusion and have been focused on the waste recycling over and over again. So whatever you can do to get involved with us, do check out our website. Come out and see one of the giant Lego bricks we have out there. And as we like to always end our meetings in, here's a quote by Margaret Mead. "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Please join us on April 6th for the Zero Waste Recycling that the city sponsors. We have a group out doing that. It's over off of First Avenue, 2700 block across from Hemmel Park. We're doing the Earth Day celebration down at Children's Museum because we like to do the education piece. Whatever it is, come out and join Rotary Club Tucson Verde. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. All right, next we have U Arizona Divest.
Hello, my name is Reese, and to first address the elephant in the room, I am wearing a U of A hat. That's for two reasons. First, I woke up early. I didn't want to do my hair. And the second reason was I'm a student at the U of A, and our organization is primarily focused on sustainability at the U of A. When people hear that, they initially ask me, oh, okay, what is your power plant? And that is very much an important part of sustainability, but our organization is very much focused on investment. So the U of A currently has over $113 million invested in fossil fuels. That's called Scope 3 emissions. And that is very much our focus because we see that the environment is all-inclusive. And so we need groups like ours to focus on the investment side of things to make sure that our tuition goes towards green initiatives. So what we do primarily is advocating for that at the U of A. We also work with community groups, but the real bread and butter of our organization is talking to administration, working on making things like the Climate Action Plan, which is currently in the works and being worked on. And through that, we try to advocate for the changing of our investments from fossil fuels into any green initiative, any green energy. And so we do that primarily, like I said, through advocacy. So we are a very small student organization. We are pretty ragtag. If I would describe us in 2 words, it would be adaptable and independent. We are not a club. We do not get any funding from the university. We are just a group of people who are passionate about changing the U of A policy, making sure it aligns with our goals and our already stated sustainability objectives. So we have weekly meetings at the library, and we have a monthly fun activity to make sure that you don't get burned out. And we think that the most important parts of climate action are staying involved, staying consistent, and raising your voice. Having the youth voice there is very important, and so at the U of A, for all future students, if you want to get a good group of people who are passionate about the university and also passionate about helping the Tucson community align ourselves with those goals, then come visit our table. We are over in the back, over there. Me and Lucas spent a lot of time getting this really cool sign set up. So if you want to see that, grab a sticker, grab a keychain, please come see us. We're outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Wonderful. Next, we're going to hear from PCC Program Advisor.
Hello, my name is Delilah. I'm an academic advisor here at Pima Community College. As advisors, we're here to help you select, make sure you're taking the courses to graduate, but also to select courses that you're interested in. So we have various options for you to take general education or electives that focus on climate action and sustainability. There's some posters around the room with course descriptions, but there's many more options. So we'll be right outside these double doors to the left, so we can go over some of those options you have. Registration for summer is open, and then fall registration opens April 8th. So stop by so we can help you select some of those climate action and sustainability courses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Philosophy Club.
Hello, everyone. I'm with the Philosophy Club here at Pima College, and we, of course, celebrate philosophy in all its aspects. It's a community building, enrichment. We actually have them here downtown once a month. We cover all kinds of topics, just generally encouraging discourse and community between the public and the college. This April 12th, we'll actually be covering community itself. And then on May 10th, we will be discussing climate, believe it or not. We've also covered other topics in the past, including transhumanism, death and dying, and we are happy to say that we are excited to cover even more in the future. That's basically all I have to say. You can find our table out there. We have the Pima Engage profile, as well as some QR codes that you can look at if you're interested.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Anna from Sierra Club.
Hi everyone, my name is Ana Gorla. I am the Energy and Public Lands Program Coordinator for the Sierra Club Grand Canyon chapter, which is the Arizona chapter. Our mission is to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of Earth. Our chapter here in Arizona has a few priorities. One of them is our Borderlands program here in Tucson that focuses on restoring and working on the issues at the borderlands. I personally work on energy and public land campaigns that focus on fighting fossil fuels in our state, promoting clean energy, and helping protect our public lands. We work on national monuments. Right now we're working on Respect Great Bend of the Gila, and we're also fighting the Pinyon Plain mine that's also known as Canyon Mine that's threatening the waters of the Havasupai and the Grand Canyon. So if you'd like to help us out with that, I actually have some petitions. We'd love your help getting those signed. We also focus on water issues, protecting our wild rivers, and we have a Water Sentinels program that's looking for volunteers to go out and help test some of the waters around our state. We also have a wildlife activist group that focuses on protecting endangered species around our state. And my director, Sandy Barr, she also runs our legislative program, so she keeps various groups and our volunteers up to date on what's happening at the legislature regarding environmental bills. And we also have a strong volunteer group for that, where she teaches folks how to speak up on these bills and how to track these bills as well. And we also have a hiking program, so we do outings out at trails. I'm personally an outings leader. I love taking people outside and helping them connect with the lands out here, and also talk about the environmental issues around there. And we also looking for volunteers if you ever want to also lead hikes and talk about, how to connect with the issues that we're fighting. And I think that's it. I'll keep it short. So our table's outside, and I have petitions, actions, and I can talk more about our volunteer positions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I have one last minute addition here. I'm going to introduce Francisca James Hernandez from the EGTSS department here at Pima.
Good morning, everybody. Just a quick announcement. As you can see, the college is making a concerted effort to raise our awareness and take action on issues related to climate, sustainability, and eco-justice. And I want to invite all of you to another event that we're having on these themes on May 10th. It's a full day of events at the West Campus in the Proscenium Theater. I'm going to put a banner up. If you come and see me, I have a code you can scan for more information. I don't want to take more of your time, but we're going to have a fantastic keynoter, a National Geographic photographer. The mayor will be addressing, and we're going to have panelists of speakers, and then workshops to have people actually learn some skills, things like we're hoping like composting or how to reuse, recycle, how to do seed bombs, I mean, all kinds of things. So you are invited. It's free and open to the public. For those who are there the full day, you get continental breakfast and lunch for free as well. And we believe it is the first event of its kind organized by Pima College that will be eco-friendly. We're trying to go with no plastics, meatless menus, and we're looking into recycling and composting as much, if not everything, as possible from the event. And we're asking people to bring your own bottles, your own beverage bottles, so that you can also be part of the solution. We all need to be part of the solution, right? So look for that May 10th, put it on your calendars. Come see me if you want to scan the QR code for more information. I'll try to put a banner up. And I want to congratulate the organizers of today's event. It's truly amazing and inspiring, and they've done a fantastic job. Let's give them a hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisca. And totally my fault. I'm going to invite Mary up from archaeology because she was totally on the list and I skipped her. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Just very quickly, I know we need to move on. I'm Mary Presiunas. I'm PCC Archaeology faculty. I'm here with the Center for Archaeological Field Training, which is over at the West Campus. And we have some information about our program. We focus on, teaching students how to identify and document and preserve and protect archaeological sites. And so we have some fun hands-on activities that I wanted to make you aware of. We're going to be flying our drone around. You can check that out. Our drone helps us identify and prevent impacts to archaeological sites. We're going to be showing people how to make stone tools using traditional techniques and helping people make some stone jewelry if you're interested, again, using traditional techniques. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, so with that is wrapping up our community spotlight. Can we get one more round of applause for everybody taking action in our community right now? Thank you. I'm going to hand it back over to Maria.
Thank you, Crystal. So that concludes the morning session for our online folks. So we will meet back online at 1:30 for our afternoon sessions. For the folks that are in the room, our next session is going to be the En-ROADS workshop where Noah Fay, our geology faculty and department head, is going to help us explore climate policy and climate solutions with the help of an interactive tool. And so I'm going to hand it over to him.
Okay, thank you.